The city buzzed around him like a relentless storm, cars honking and people rushing by, their faces blurring into one another. Yet, in the midst of the chaos, Hui stood frozen, as if time itself had stopped. His heart pounded so loudly he feared it might betray him. And then she appeared. The woman he had loved and lost 16 years ago, standing there on the cracked sidewalk, her worn-out clothes clinging to a frame thinner than he remembered. Her hair, once glossy and full of life, now tangled and streaked with premature gray. Her eyes, those same eyes that once ignited his world, were clouded, shadowed by a pain that no time could fully erase. She was selling lottery tickets. A cold gust swept through the street, carrying the faint scent of rain and something else, something familiar yet agonizingly distant. Mai's hands trembled as she clutched the thin stack of tickets, and when their eyes finally locked, the world seemed to hold its breath. For a moment she looked away, swallowing hard, as if the sight of him dredged up memories she wanted buried deep. Hui's throat tightened. The words he wanted to say caught like thorns, each one sharper than the last. Why are you here?" He wanted to ask, but his voice refused to obey. Instead, all he could do was watch as a ticket slipped from her grasp, fluttering to the ground like a fallen leaf. The crowd pressed closer, oblivious to the storm raging between these two strangers. Mai's face was pale, lips pressed into a thin line, struggling to keep the tremor from her voice as she murmured, "I'm just trying to live." But how could he believe that? The woman he had dreamed of marrying forever, the woman whose laughter once filled his nights with warmth, how had she fallen so far? And more hauntingly, why had he never found her all these years? His mind raced back to memories they had shared, the promises, the dreams, the cruel silence that had torn them apart. He wanted to reach out, to bridge the distance with a single touch, but his hands hung useless at his sides. All that remained was the ache of regret, thick and suffocating. Mai took a hesitant step back, eyes flickering with a mixture of fear and defiance. "Please," she whispered, barely audible, "don't make this harder than it already is." Then, without waiting for a response, she turned and disappeared into the sea of faces. Hui stood alone, heart shattered and raw, the ghosts of their past swirling around him like a storm. The world moved on, indifferent, but for him, nothing would ever be the same again. The air was thick with unspoken words as Ethan sat across from Mira, her silent eyes fixed on him like a mirror reflecting all his regrets. The cabin, once a refuge, now felt like a cage holding the weight of years lost. He reached into the worn leather satchel and pulled out an old, faded letter, edges frayed from time and tears. His hands trembled as he unfolded it, the paper brittle yet alive with the memories it carried. Myra's eyes widened, the silence between them shattered by the fragile voice of the past echoing through those faded lines. The letter was from Lily, his late wife, a desperate plea and a confession wrapped in sorrow. It spoke of secrets Ethan had never imagined, of sacrifices made in the shadows to protect their daughters. She wrote of a truth too painful to reveal, a truth that had driven her away, leaving Ethan drowning in guilt and misunderstanding. The revelation struck him like a thunderbolt, shaking the very foundation of the life he thought he knew. Tears blurred his vision as he whispered the words aloud, trying to grasp the depth of her sacrifice. Mira reached out, her small hand clutching his, grounding him amidst the storm of emotions crashing over him. The fragile bond between father and daughter was rekindled in that moment, a flicker of hope in the dark. But with hope came the bitter taste of betrayal. Someone had kept this secret from him all these years, someone who had watched his pain and chose silence. The room seemed to close in as memories surfaced like ghosts. Hidden phone calls, unexplained absences, and that night of the accident that shattered their family. Ethan's heart pounded with a mix of rage and sorrow. He vowed to uncover the truth, to confront those who had twisted his fate and stolen precious time. But the journey ahead was fraught with shadows, and every step threatened to unravel the fragile peace they had rebuilt. As the fire flickered low, Ethan held Mira close, their tears mingling in the quiet darkness. The past had finally spoken, but the future was uncertain, tangled in secrets waiting to be uncovered. In the silence, a promise was made. A promise to fight for the truth, for justice, and for the family they still had a chance to save. The night air was sharp with tension as Ethan stood outside the crumbling warehouse, the place where years of deception had quietly festered. His breath came in ragged bursts, heart pounding like a war drum, every nerve screaming in anticipation. Inside, shadows shifted, whispering secrets he was finally ready to face. The door creaked open, and there, bathed in a cold, unforgiving light, stood Darius, the man who had been the architect of his pain, the silent puppeteer behind the unraveling of his family. Ethan's voice cracked, raw with betrayal and burning anger as he stepped forward. "Why? After everything, why did you keep her from me? From Mira?" His words hung in the air like a challenge, a demand for truth that had long been buried beneath layers of lies. Darius's eyes gleamed cold and calculating, a cruel smile curling his lips. "You think it was that simple? You think I wanted to destroy you? No, Ethan. I protected my own. Sometimes the truth is too dangerous, too fragile. You were weak. She was weak. I did what had to be done." The weight of those words hit Ethan like a physical blow. His fists clenched, trembling with the fight raging inside him. Rage, sorrow, disbelief. "You decided what was right. You tore my family apart for your selfish reasons. You lied, you watched me suffer." His voice broke, revealing the raw wound beneath the fury. Darius took a step closer, his presence looming like a dark cloud. "You don't understand the bigger picture. You never did." Mira, who had silently followed, stepped forward, her small frame trembling but her eyes fierce with newfound courage. "No more lies," she whispered, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "We deserve the truth." The room fell into a heavy silence, the kind that presses down on the soul, waiting for the next strike. Darius's mask slipped for a fleeting second, revealing a flicker of doubt or maybe regret. But then it hardened again, and with a cold finality he spat. "The past is dead. What matters now is survival." Ethan shook his head, pain and determination etched into every line of his face. "No, what matters is healing. And I will fight to the end to rebuild what you tried to destroy." The tension exploded like thunder as Ethan lunged forward, the fight for justice and redemption igniting in the dim light. The clash was more than physical. It was a battle for truth, for family, for the fragile hope that had survived the darkest of storms. Every blow, every word, carved the path toward a reckoning that could either shatter them completely or finally set them free. The storm had passed, but the air remained heavy with the weight of truth finally unleashed. Ethan sat on the worn wooden bench outside the small cottage, Mira beside him, their fingers intertwined like lifelines tethered against the relentless tide of pain and hope. The confrontation with Darius had cracked the armor of deception, peeling back layers of darkness that had clouded their lives for too long. Yet, even as the secret spilled into the light, the hardest part lay ahead, the fragile, trembling act of forgiveness. Ethan's voice was thick with emotion as he recounted the full story to Mira, each word a thread weaving their shattered past into a fragile tapestry of understanding. Lily's sacrifices, her silent suffering, the twisted manipulation by Darius. It all came crashing down in a flood of grief and relief. Myra's eyes shimmered with tears, reflecting the pain of 1,000 unanswered questions now finally answered. "Why did she leave us, Dad? Why didn't she come back?" The innocence in her voice cut deeper than any wound, a stark reminder that even truths could be bittersweet. Ethan pulled her close, his heart breaking anew at the sight of his daughter's pain. "She never stopped loving us, Mira. She left to keep us safe. Sometimes love means letting go." The words felt fragile, almost too fragile to hold on to, yet they were the only lifeline in the wreckage. As the night deepened, the cottage glowed softly with a warmth born not from the fire, but from the slow, tentative healing beginning to take root. Forgiveness was not a sudden gift but a long, winding path. Ethan felt the heavy chains of anger and betrayal loosen as he looked into Myra's eyes, the future they could still claim together. The ghosts of the past whispered, but they no longer ruled the silence between them. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the gentle hum of the night, Ethan found a strength he thought was lost forever. The strength to forgive not only Darius but himself, for the years spent blinded by pain. Mira smiled through her tears, her small hand squeezing his in a silent promise that they would face whatever came next united. The truth had torn them apart, but it had also sown the first stitches of a new beginning. And in that fragile dawn, Ethan understood that redemption was not just about uncovering the past, but about embracing the imperfect, beautiful future waiting just beyond the horizon. The morning light spilled gently through the cracked window, casting a pale glow over the worn floorboards of Ethan's workshop. The air was thick with a scent of sawdust and fresh paint, but beneath it lingered something far more profound, a fragile sense of renewal. Ethan stood at his workbench, hands steady but heart pounding with the weight of everything that had come before and the uncertain promise of what might still be. Mira sat nearby, her eyes bright with a quiet determination, the silence between them no longer heavy but filled with a tentative hope. For so long, their lives had been shadowed by loss and secrets, each day a battle to hold on to the fragments of family torn apart by betrayal and pain. Yet now, in the soft hum of this new dawn, those shards seemed to shimmer with the possibility of something whole again. Ethan ran his fingers over a freshly carved wooden figurine, a symbol of endurance, a gift to himself and to Mira, a testament to their survival. The scars etched into the wood mirrored the scars in their souls, but like the grain beneath his hands, they carried the story of growth and resilience. Myra's voice broke the quiet, small but fierce. "Dad, do you think we can really start over?" Ethan looked down at her, the flicker of a smile tugging at his lips despite the weight of uncertainty. "I don't know what the future holds, Mira. But I do know that as long as we have each other, we have a chance. A chance to heal, to rebuild, to find light in the darkness." His words were a promise, fragile but unyielding, and in that moment, they both understood that hope was not a guarantee. It was a choice. Outside, the world stirred to life with the first birdsong of the season, a gentle reminder that nature itself was always in motion, always renewing. Ethan felt it deep in his chest, a restless but welcome stirring, the urge to move forward, to create something new from the ashes of what was lost. He reached out, pulling Mira into a warm embrace, their fears and dreams mingling in the quiet strength of that hold. No grand declarations, no sudden miracles, just the steady, enduring pulse of life insisting on continuing. The past would never fully disappear, its shadows sometimes stretching long into the days ahead. But Ethan and Mira had learned that even in the darkest places, light could find a way. As they stepped out together into the soft morning light, the future was still a mystery, unwritten and wild. Yet within that unknown lay their greatest power, the courage to face it side by side, hearts open, ready for whatever would come next. And so, the story lingered there, on the edge of a new beginning, not an ending but a quiet, beautiful rebirth, fragile as dawn, promising as the first breath of spring.